All right. Welcome back. It's Coach Mr. New, and I'm here today to help you with Course 4. So, now since we got our happiness, now since we know intrinsic versus extrinsic motivational factors and our strategies that we would use from day to day, and now since we know that we need awareness always, we're here at course number 4. Course number 4 is great because this is life living. This is the ing to the world that you know and the world that you show and grow through. This here is course 4, stress management and the mind-body connection. So what we're looking at doing in this course is to help you understand how to manage that newfound discovery of self-happiness. But we also understand that certain things stress you out. Certain things put you in a position to where you disconnect from your body or you disconnect from your mind. And those things lead to situations that may feel like unhappiness. Great thing about that is this. This is a management tool. This has the most tools involved out of all the courses except for course 8, which these two are bundled together. Course 8 and course 4 go hand in hand in dealing with this discovery aspect. And remember, discovery is a verb. It is an action. It is you living your life day to day. So we need to learn how to manage what we are discovering. Which takes us back to chapter 1. Are you aware of your own management skills? Let alone those management skills within stress. Those management skills at the home, at the job, with your children, with your mind, with your anxieties, with the things that are good and healthy for you, with the things that are just terrible for you. Can you manage these things, these stressors, whether they're what we call eustress, positive stress, or distress, negative stress? I don't like to see it as positive and negative. I like to see it as stress taking you forward versus stress holding you back. But then the stress that holds you back can actually push you forward. And the things that you just push forward on can put you in a backward state. So our awareness is very important, which is why we got to be truly connected to our mind and our body. But we can't just be connected to our mind and we can't just be connected to our body. We have to understand that our mind is connected to our body outside of ourselves. And this is the idea of us having a different version of self. Every version of you can change, but that doesn't mean the things that you're doing are changing. You might want to go to the gym and you might want to change your routine. You're still at the gym and you're still working out with the routine. So there is a slight difference between you being in the gym today versus yesterday versus not wanting to go to the gym whatsoever. You might be a recreational type of person. I never go to the gym, but I'm always out here playing basketball. I'm always at the park walking. I'm always on the mountains hiking. I'm always in the water surfing. I'm always playing tennis or what's the new thing? Paddleball? No. Whatever. There's lots of recreational activities that you can do. Some people like to rollerblade. Some people like to go to skate parks and skateboard. Some people love BMX. Some people like new things to your mindset like dressage or croquet. These are places that you can become more familiar with when you understand that you are connecting your mind and your body to your mind and its body and its mind. Your 6-year-old brain connecting to your 25-year-old brain. That is what we're talking about. Taking what you used to do as a 21-year-old and doing it as a 44-year-old. Takes a different mind, takes a different body connection. Your mind and your body will never disconnect from you as an aware, active, living person, but the activities of when you did do them versus when you did not do them, that is where the connection needs to be managed. And stress is the cause of why those connections become discord. They become disconnected. They become unrelated or forgotten. So, as always, let's dive into this book. But we have our disclaimers. Again, we're just here to give you some insights, some knowledge, and to help you understand this is one tool out of many that you can operate within. Explore all the full range of our soul motivation books. Use our blogs. Gain a holistic approach upon yourself, because that is the awareness that we're seeking for you to gain. We want you to be the best version of yourself. So in order to do that, we must show yourself who you are. And as you show yourself who you are, you'll realize you're growing. So let's get into this. Chapter 1. Understanding stress and its impact. Okay, so stress management and the mind-body connection. This here is the idea of where stress comes from. And stress comes from multiple ways, but the biggest difference comes in the idea of your nervous system. Now, inside the body, we have two different types of nerves. Okay, you have your parasympathetic nerves and then your sympathetic nerves. Kind of sounds the same because they are the same. The only difference is, like a paralegal or paranormal activity, these things are parapsychology. These are aspects of ourselves which will allow us to see things from our imagination brain. Things that we can make up, things that we can create, things that will function with us through our metacognition. So, let's take a deeper look. It says your parasympathetic nerves, these things operate the things that you have no control over. You can't control, most people, I can't say everyone, but most people can't constrict their pupils when they want to. Most people can't stop salivating when they smell some food that they really want to eat. Most people can't just slow your heart rate down. Some people can't open up their lungs to breathe, so they're always constricted. Again, going back to food, you can't stop your hunger from showing you you're hungry when you're hungry. These are aspects of the natural life. The natural nervous system or response, or the natural feedback system, this loop that we can become aware of and we can influence. Again, we can only influence it. So you can actually change your breath rate. You can change how often you receive breath. And when you do it frequently, that will change your breath rate relative to, let's say, your heart rate. So when somebody is getting riled up, they're stimulated. So we tell them, breathe, and then they can start to slow down our heart rate. But the breathing is not directly slowing down the heart rate. That is the parasite. Again, we are here, we can do things to make an influence, but that's all. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system, these things are the aspects of the opposite side. So if you can influence, then you can influence. That's it. Now it's about how. And this is where the management comes in. How do we manage the things that make us go hungry? Don't want the food. If you do not like the food, your body is not going to salivate. And if you're starving to death, maybe, because you just want to sustain yourself. But that's not the same thing as desiring the food and saying, oh, I need to eat that. So that's the cool thing about it. That's the slight difference. That slight difference comes in the idea of us moving in one direction called long-term health. That long-term health direction has ups and downs. It has intrinsic and extrinsic motivational factors. It has things that help us be eustressed or distressed. But we can always polarize and flip that around and make a change, just like yin and yang. And now those distressors are positive for us, and those eustressors are negative. So we got to see that there is a way to influence both sides. And that is our key. We're looking at influencing both sides of our own nervous system. And this is what we call regulation. It's not control. It's management. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Okay. So understanding the mind-body connection in the context of stress. This is simple. Here you go. Doesn't seem too simple, but once you understand that it's just a location, then everything is simple. Who you are as an individual at the center of this space, you have an environment outside of you. And this microsystem is your immediate environment. But your first immediate environment is the awareness you have within your brain. And then that mind projects what you have awareness of outside of your brain into your immediate environment, which comes in the form of what you keep around you. Your bedroom, your friends, the school you go to. These are just environments. But then those two things come together and it creates what you call your mesosystem. And this mesosystem is the in-between. It's the exchange. It's where we learn. It's where we grow. It's where we get stimulated and where we get destimulated. These are where the things outside of you live, but they influence you. So not just being at school in the classroom with the teacher you love versus the teacher you hate. Again, we can regulate those things by influencing some techniques to help us manage those environments. As we manage these environments, these things allow us to now make choices, which takes us into our exosystem. The external system tells us how we behave in those environments that are immediate to us. So if you're at school, and then you're at a school in a classroom where you love the teacher, you might not care who your neighbor is. But then if you are in a classroom with a teacher you hate, or a class that you hate, or a topic you just think is so boring, you really might hope your best friend is your neighbor. You might believe that that's the only way for you to make it through. Maybe you feel so stupid in this class, and the only way you can survive is if you go and hang out with the smart people. Maybe you need to play politics and try to convince that teacher to give you time. Or maybe you need to go to the school system and offer yourself a new opportunity. Same thing at the job. The idea behind this is that we can't control these things. We can't control these people. We can't control these environments, but we can influence them. Which takes us to our macro system. These are the ideas. These are the ideas, the ideologies. These are the cultural expectations. These are our societal expectations. These are what you should be doing. These are the rules, the regulations of how we operate. You can influence that because guess what? There are many rule breakers in this world for good or for bad. The key point is how does this influence you as an individual? How does it seep back into you, into your core? This is the point of this book. This book here helps you manage all of these different environments, which has the potential to stress you out. And that might be a positive stress or a negative stress. It might be an encouraging stress or a discouraging stress. But we must see that the simple place that we need to be is within ourselves. Connected to how we feel, no matter what space we're in. This is how we're managing that stress. By managing the connection that we maintain with ourselves, in particular with our mind and with our body. The way we do this is through our emotions. We have to be aware of the emotions that are being exuded behind each of these different environments. And as we are aware of these environments and how they influence our emotions, then we can talk and teach and plan the right strategies, the right motivations, the right new aspects to keep us happy in these environments because we're aware. This will allow us to step into more awareness and then guess what? Remain happy as we do it. That's the whole point of us discovering this happiness. It's the whole point of us planning strategies and finding out which motivational factor works best for me when I need it. And it's the whole point of us looking for awareness not once but twice. We got to see these things at the macro level and at the micro level. And then we also have to add a third level in there called the in-between, the meso. So, the nuances of the mind-body connection in the context of stress is essential to examine the diverse array of the stressors that pervade our lives. That's a very important sentence. We just got to know that there's all kinds of stressors, and those stressors can be the same, but then they can change and still be the same claim. That's all. We have to see it though. So in order for us to see these things, we got to be aware of the things that are stressing us out or stressing us in. Let's move forward. We can start here. So, practical steps for stress management. First of all, you got to be self-aware and mindful. Number 2, you got to know what you're going to do when you're stressed out. So you need a technique to get yourself back regulated. Step 3, you got to understand that sometimes you can't regulate everything. The tower moment, the tomato walking. Sometimes you can't. So how will you cope with what you control versus what you can't control? And then you must seek support. Maybe that comes from an internal version of you. Maybe that comes from an external placement of yourself, intrinsic versus extrinsic. But they're still determined by your management skills. So you must know these things in order to provide yourself with the things that you need. Just like if you had asthma, did you put your pump in your backpack before you went to school? Did you give your pump a check before you left the house to see if you needed a new one or a fresh one? What did you do to help yourself cope with the stresses that you can't truly anticipate? This is the stress management that we're talking about. Chapter 3 gives you a bunch of different practical steps. And so if you had a whole year to cultivate some techniques for stress management, this is what we're doing here. We're giving you a bunch of different things that you can try. So I'm not going to go over them. Buy the book if you want to get a deeper look. But the idea is you now are practicing something new, 12 things, something new though each month. And that will help you for any time of the year. Notice we're from months into years because we got to see it differently. Chapter 4 talks about exercise, diet, and sleep. These are healthy coping habits, but these habits change from person to person. The interconnectedness of these aspects matter. And so this here is a new way to see what you're doing for yourself on a year-long basis. So maybe you decide that the first couple of months you're going to be focusing on exercise. And by then you should have a routine of what you like versus what you don't like. And then maybe you give yourself a couple of months off and then you try something new to see if what you're doing works. So then you might go ahead and say, well, on these other months, I'm going to be focusing on my nutrition. Instead of taking everything with one giant plate, we're allowing ourselves time. And then we're managing the time, we're managing the actions, we're managing what we're doing to help us remove stressors from our lives or cope with the stresses we can't control. And we're learning that we can do them in multiple ways. So start off with the exercises. Physical stress is great. I'm too tired to care. But then at the end of the day, once you get used to your routine and you got all that good old energy, stresses are still going to be there. So now maybe you can look forward to certain things like nutritional habits. Maybe if you're nervous, you might bring out some of your a bag of nuts, mixed nuts, some cashews, one of your favorite. Maybe if you're feeling kind of lonely or got some anxiety, you might bring out some fruits. The idea is what works for me. And that's what you can do for these next months. You can explore what works for you. And then at the end of the day, nothing matters if you are not rested. And sometimes that means resting on aspects that you do not no longer need. You do not need them and you no longer need them. You do not no longer. You don't have to, but you can. And that's the whole cool thing about these sleep months, because sometimes you can rest, sometimes you don't need the rest. Sometimes you need more sleep, sometimes you need less sleep. It depends on you, but we are trying new things throughout this whole entire year. Again, these are the strategies that we recommend to you, but you are your own person. You need to decide, because it starts with the individual and then it bleeds into your immediate environment. So if you want to be a vegan and then nobody else in your family wants to be a vegan, guess what? You need to manage that aspect of yourself and be a transitional vegan. Mezzo, the in-between. It's not like that you are forcing people to do what you do or to change themselves. It's allowing you to take more time to adapt to new environments, because you don't need to be your change immediately. If you want your change to be sustainable for the long-term plan, the long-term goal, you got to keep yourself aware of how you can behave in the present moment. Chapter 5. It's one of my favorite aspects, just for the simple fact that this was one of the first designs that we had here at Soul Inspiration. This design here, don't hope, work. It comes in the form of understanding that we can always put in some kind of work. But remember, intensity is what works for us. So the difference, or the battle that we have between our mind and our body, our mind and our mind, our cravings versus our discipline, this battle always gives us some type of energy. We just need to manage that energy into the proper space. Again, does this need to be in the macro scale? Does it need to be on the micro scale? Does it need to be in the meso? Or do I need to take this in as my core? Again, this is us managing the things that we can and cannot. So, as we go, we're giving you more tips on things, what you can do, how you can be, but the idea is you need to be holistic. So, jumping down here, we have a fitness motivational journal. Doesn't matter if you get ours, doesn't matter if you use a blank piece of paper, you need to write stuff down. You need to write it down, write it down, write it down, and preferably you should put that shit on your wall so you can see it every day. Just like when your parents would take your schoolwork, your drawings, whatever you would make as a baby, and they would display it to the world. That is what you did from the inside, and your parents helped show you that same thing on the outside. Though that is the epiphany of what it means to have an intrinsic value and an extrinsic value be connected. It allows you to see you on the outside, opposed to feel what needs to be drawn from the inside. These two things come together to show you a complete version of yourself, what we call connection. So as we're connecting with ourselves, make sure that you're using the tools that we are recommending to help you stay connected with your holistic self, all parts of you. And it will take time, which is why we're striving for the long-term goal, long-term health. We don't want to do things for tomorrow. We want to do it for every tomorrow after tomorrow, after tomorrow, after tomorrow. Eternity is what we call it. So, whether we're here or whether we're not, understand that we have these tools in place for you to help yourself, and they come in many forms, whether that's in a podcast form, blogs, whether that's with coaching, whether that's with just connecting through affiliate marketing, whatever you need, we got you. The idea is, do you have yourself? So let's look forward to making these changes with ourselves. Let's go give ourselves the tools that we need to manage this stress, to keep our mind and body connected outside of who we think we should be or what we are required to be in that moment. And let's just be great. We already decided to be excellent. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys being here. Like always, peace.